Here we are. Welcome to Packman Paranormal Live. Ernie Pack.
Denise Pack.
That's right. We're Packman Paranormal. Isn't that an awesome introduction? How I do that, y'all? I am good at this.
He's a professional.
I am. That's what everybody says. We typically try to get some good guests on here,
but he doesn't succeed very often.
Sometimes we do really well, and tonight's one of those nights. We've got a guy coming on that we've wanted to have on a few times over the years. We never could line up schedules just right to make it work, but it finally worked out tonight. His name is David Domine. He's an author. He also runs Louisville Historic Tours, and he's got a lot to say.
He's got a lot of hats that he wears.
He does have a lot of hats to wear, or that he wears, whatever. Anyway, let me bring him on screen, and he can tell you how cool he is. Hang on just a second. Here he is, David Domine. Welcome, my friend.
Hey, good to finally be on. I don't know how cool I am and what good I'm going to be as a guest, but
just go with it.
I'm glad it finally worked. But,
our viewers are suckers. Just
they watch Ernie every week, so you know their standards are not very high.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of chopped liver in Louisville. I mean, everyone knows me. I write books about Louisville. I love old Louisville, which they call America's most haunted neighborhood. That's kind of what got me into all of this. In 1999, I bought a house on 3rd Street that was supposedly haunted. And if you read any of my stuff, I'm kind of a skeptic. I always say when a ghost walks up and shakes my hand, that's when I'll start believing in them. But I've always been fascinated by the paranormal, and I just love ghost stories. And so I bought this house and moved in, and all the crazy things the previous owner told me her ghost was known to do began to happen. And we lived in that house for 8 years. I never did see the ghost. I was hoping to see to make me a true believer. Hey, Eric, thanks for tuning in. But we had all these other things happen, and I saw things move on by themselves on occasion. I left the house a couple times in the middle of the night. So even though I never saw that real bona fide apparition, I came to believe in the paranormal, whatever that is. I definitely believe in the paranormal. And so in old Louisville, everyone knows everyone else's business. Before long, they heard I was living in this house where all this weird stuff was happening. The Courier Journal came and they did a story about me living in a supposedly haunted house. And when that article ran, it kind of opened a floodgate. All these people came out of the woodwork with their stories of would-be hauntings and paranormal goings on. They found out Aunt Sally had killed her lover in the back parlor in 1912 and things like that. And if you know anything about old Louisville, around here, a lot of people tend not to appreciate what is in their own backyard. And old Louisville is an incredible neighborhood. It's one of the largest historic preservation districts in the United States. There's 45 square blocks of old houses, roughly 1,400 old homes and mansions, most of them going back to the 1880s and the 1890s. So there's tons of history and just architectural beauty. And I was amazed the city wasn't promoting it more. And that's when I realized that, you don't need to believe in ghosts to enjoy a good ghost story. There's so much more. There's history and architecture and real life character and local flavor, and you can talk about other things. And so I started writing down these stories as my way to kind of chronicle the history, the legends, the oral traditions in old Louisville. And I started writing books, and they wanted more, so I kept writing the books, and then they wanted to see the places they were reading about, so we started tours in the neighborhood. And this year officially is my 22nd year of doing tours in some form or other in old Louisville. And the word got out, and over time they started calling us America's most haunted neighborhood, because they say in old Louisville you can't go more than half a block before you come across a supposedly haunted house. And it's been great. We get people from all over the world. And when I moved out of that house in 2008, I was a food writer. Besides writing my ghost and history books, I was writing my first cookbook. And so that's when I heard about this house on 4th Street that had come on the market. And we were kind of torn between staying in Old Louisville or going to the Highlands. And but what interested me about this house I heard about on 4th Street, they called it the Richard Robinson House. It was built in 1898, but I heard they had the original wine cellar from when the family built it. And somehow I got into my head, if you're going to be a food writer, you have to have a wine cellar. And so I
Of
made an
course.
appointment to
Yeah.
go look at the house. Hey, Brittany, thanks for tuning in. And it needed too much work. It was twice the size of my house. It had 12 bedrooms and looked like a bomb had gone off in the kitchen. The carriage house roof had caved in. But before I left, I made sure to go look at the wine cellar since that's what kind of intrigued me. And that was kind of a disappointment. The previous owners, for some reason, had torn out all the shelves. So I
Yeah.
could see the diamond-shaped cubbyhole patterns that
Mhm.
were left behind in shadows on the wall, but it was all gone. And there was just a dirt floor and 4 bare walls. So I said no thanks. And as I was leaving that appointment with the real estate agent, I was going down the steps to the front walk, and a guy zoomed up past me in the opposite direction. He had the appointment after I did, it turns out. He bumped into me, didn't say excuse me or anything, and I thought, kind of rude, but
Yeah.
I found out, he was running late, so I didn't think anything of it until a year and a half later. It was the morning of June 18th, 2010. I teach at Bellarmine University, so I was getting ready to go teach my class that morning, and I was drinking my morning coffee. I was watching TV, and a Little John's pawn shop commercial had just come on. If you remember those,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Hey David Keith, and I was watching that, and all of a sudden, a news flash cut in. It was WHS 11, and there was a big, boxy red brick house on the screen, and there were police up front. There was caution tape all around. And when I saw the house, I thought, that house looks kind of familiar. It's probably down in Old Louisville. Looks like right where I used to live. And then a mugshot popped up. They had arrested a guy, a 37-year-old man on the premises. His name was Jeffrey Munt. And when they put up his mugshot, all of a sudden I realized I knew him from someplace, but I couldn't figure out where it was. And so I started to rack my brain, like, how do I know him? And then as the story unfolded on WHS 11, I realized how I knew him and why the house looked familiar. That was the Richard Robinson house I had looked at,
Yeah.
1435 South 4th Street. And I said no that morning, but Jeffrey Munt, he said yes. Hi, Ryan Schroeder. Hey, Christine. And he bought the house for $335,000. He had just moved back from Chicago, and he had plans on turning it into a bed and breakfast. And so he moved in. A couple months after he moved in and started work, he met another local guy, another 37-year-old by the name of Joey Bannis. He's from a prominent family here in town. Unfortunately, he was like the black sheep of the family. He had, trouble, and he had been in prison, but Joey and Jeffrey kind of hit it off. They started dating. Joey moved himself into the house. And on 4th Street, people thought it was just two guys living together, fixing up an old house. But what they didn't know is the more they got into drugs, the more things started to spiral out of control. And the evening before that news story broke in June 2010, 911 got a call that night before around 9:30. It was Jeffrey. He was barricaded in a room on the 2nd floor. He told the police to come and save him. His boyfriend, Joey, was out in the hallway with a hammer trying to kill him. He was trying to break through the wooden door to come inside. And so the police responded. They ended up at the house thinking they were responding to a normal kind of domestic disturbance. But as they, took the two parties aside
Separate.
and questioned them separately, like is
Mhm.
normal, to get both sides of the story. That's when one of the guys ratted out the other and told the police where they could go and find a dead body. And they didn't believe it at first, but eventually, after they talked enough, they realized one of them knew something, and they started calling around and they found out the guy that they were talking about, another 37-year-old named Jamie Carroll from the eastern part of Kentucky. He had been missing for 7 months, and the pieces of the story fell into place. And they finally went and looked for the body, and sure enough, they found it. And where was it?
Your wine
Buried in
cellar.
buried in the dirt floor of the wine cellar.
Wow.
And A&E was in town that night, a show called The First 48. They still show this episode every 4 or 5 months. It's called What Lies Beneath, and they recorded all this live as it was happening. And it's been on 5 other true crime shows. So it's out there. But because I write about the neighborhood and I almost bought this house, I had to write a book about it. So 3 years later is when we had the trials. Many called it the trial of he said, because they both kind of pointed the finger at each other.
Mhm.
Right.
Eventually, they both came out and admitted that they had hidden the body, they had covered the crime, but they insisted the other had done the actual killing. And so they both went on trial. They agreed to testify against each other in exchange for the death penalty being dropped. And the trials were just kind of crazy. The story of how they killed this guy and what really happened that night, that's
Yeah.
kind of bizarre. And there's a lot of unanswered questions. But in the process, we started to find out more about the house where this all happened. And, like any good Victorian house, it was a sanatorium back in the day in the 30s and 40s. And there was an S&M club in the basement at one time. The guys were
Of course,
counterfeiting
like
money
any
on the
good
second
Victorian
floor.
home.
Um, the guy they killed was a drag queen, in addition to being their drug dealer and extra boyfriend sometimes. So just a crazy story. So
Mhm.
I wrote a book about it. It took me 10 years, and that's A Dark Room in Glitterball City. It came out in October of 2021. And within a week or two, I got a good review in the New York Times. And when that happened, my agent started getting calls from all the big networks and production companies. And one of them was HBO. And we went with HBO, signed a contract, and I didn't think it was ever going to happen. It seemed to drag on forever. But after 4 years, February 19th, it aired on HBO. It's a 2-part documentary called Murder in Glitterball City.
Huh.
And it's been received overwhelmingly positive so far. And what I love is, it's not my documentary. I wrote the book
Mhm.
that inspired the documentary. HBO contracted with World of Wonder in Los Angeles. And if any people out there are RuPaul's Drag Race fans,
Right.
these are the brains behind RuPaul's Drag Race. And Randy Barbado and Fenton Bailey were the directors, and it was great working with them. And it's great seeing all these wonderful accolades coming in about their documentary. It's just been a little over 2 weeks now. And what I love is Kentucky gets a spotlight. It's a terrible, it's a tragedy. The story is awful. And, there's real life people involved. When you write about real life people, when you make films about real life people, there's always a sensitive issue. You're rubbing salt in an open wound. But the filmmakers were really great, and then they kept true to the spirit of the book. And it's more, than just a true crime book. Yes, the murder of Jamie Carroll, the subsequent trial of his accused killers, Jeffrey Munt and Joey Banis, are the crux of the matter, but it's more than that. It's how it affected the city and the community. And even though it's a terrible story, they managed to kind of capture the vibe of the city and showcase some good things. And so some people think it makes old Louisville look bad or Louisville look bad. Most people disagree. They think it makes Louisville look great. And we're getting all these people come to Louisville now because they've seen the documentary, and I love it. Especially being a tour guide down there, I just love seeing all the people coming because they've seen it on HBO. They want to see the neighbor and meet some of these wonderful people that are in the documentary. And so I know you guys are planning a trip to Old Louisville soon, and I'm looking forward to showing you around and kind of the backstory to the documentary and the film and all this.
Yeah, we're
Absolutely.
definitely going to be pulling our calendar out after the podcast.
Yeah, when we get done with the live, don't go nowhere. We'll have to set something
We
up.
also, on the same note, need to have you come here and visit us in
Yeah,
Kentucky's
you
most
are-
haunted
Oh,
house.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, no, that's on my list for sure.
But this is your 13th book, if
Yep.
I'm correct.
Yep.
And you do more than true crime, like you said. You do just historical books. You do paranormal books. Do you do any fiction?
Actually, I'm switching over to fiction. I have a number of things in the works, but the thing is, yeah, I have 3 or 4 cookbooks. I have history and architecture books, paranormal, which is what I really love.
Mhm.
But Kentucky is always popping up. Louisville, and especially old Louisville. Those are my inspirations. So I've got a number of fiction things in the work. I'm just trying to find publishers, but um, I have another nonfiction, and we were talking about this before, but my follow-up book to A Dark Room in Glitterball City will be about the strange things going on in Bardstown, especially centered around the Krista Rogers disappearance and the killing of her father, and then other people in town. And if you read the book or you see the documentary, you'll know that Louisville is a character. Old Louisville is a star. And so just as I took Louisville and kind of made that the setting for this story, for this next book, Bardstown will be the star. And Bardstown is such a great little town, you know, for years. Every other year it's voted like the most charming or most beautiful small town in America. So it's got
Yeah.
that beautiful, you know, Americana vibe. But, you know, every place you go, there's always a dark, seedy underbelly.
Dark
There's
corners,
always
doesn't it?
Always
something.
something lying underneath the surface
And
that you don't
and
know
those
about.
things are fun to look into. And sometimes they're things that were swept under the rug, and people don't want it swept under the rug. They want to find out more. And if there's, you know, a victim that hasn't had justice, they want justice. They want to kind of re-examine the issues. So I'm looking forward to making Bardstown a star in my next nonfiction book. But the next book I have out, I hope, if things work well, will be a murder mystery. And it's set in old Louisville, the neighborhood I love, this beautiful Victorian neighborhood. But the thing is about this murder mystery I'm going to have set in old Louisville, which I plan on being a series, kind of a series of cozy mysteries. The heroine, the sleuth who solves the mysteries, is a drag queen, and her name is Poo Poo Chiffon. And so I've got
Great name.
I've got a whole series of Poo Poo Chiffon mysteries in the
I
works.
can't wait to read the poo poo book. That's going to be great.
Yeah, so the first one's done. We're looking for a publisher, and we're exploring options, but I'm working on the second one, and then I've got the ones after that kind of outlined. So ideally, Poo Poo Chiffon will be the next character of mine getting some attention.
That
I can't wait. I love that one.
that's already my favorite book series right now. Have you been reading the poo poo books? Those are great. Great to read in the bathroom. Anyway, so you said earlier that you weren't really a believer in the paranormal until you moved to old Louisville.
Moved in the house that has the activity.
Yeah. That tends to be what we find with a lot of people. They're not believers until they actually get in a place that has that energy or whatever.
We had so many people. We both were tour guides at Waverly Hills. We had so many people come through there that were like, "Or I'm just here because, you know, man, my wife drugged me," or "I don't believe in this, but I'm here because they made me come." And then by the end
half
of the
an hour
night,
later, they're showing me pictures and telling me what they heard down the hall and all this.
and then the next time they come back, they bought all the equipment and they brought it back with them, and they booked a private overnight.
Yeah.
It's a bug that gets people.
Yeah.
But the house there on 4th Street where this murder happened, because I'm a paranormal guy, I work with a lot of people that have seen the documentary and have been paying attention to the story of this since the documentary came out. And they've been coming to me saying, "Do you know if that place is haunted? It sounds like it's got to be haunted if you know everything about it. I mean, they had rituals there. They did this, they did that. And the murder, it's got to be haunted." I know you did some urban exploring there. What do you think?
So the house after the trials, the house was restored already, and people were moving in. So it's a couple that lives on 3rd Street, and they live in a big house, the Mengel Mansion, we call it. But they bought the Richard Robinson house, and you know, I almost bought the house twice, and the second time it was down to $119,000.
Wow.
You know, because the murder had been uncovered and it was a stigmatized property. A lot of people didn't want to be associated with it, but I would have bought it, and decided not to. It was I had a little creepy experience one night. I decided if I woke up in that house in the middle of the night, I'd probably, be freaked out. And so I ended up going to the Highlands where I live now. But the owners in June of 2013, just the next month after Jeffrey Munt's trial, they had an open house. They invited the whole neighborhood, come on in, see what we've done to the place. And they've restored it back to being a single family house. And basically they were saying to the neighborhood, come on in and check the place up, get it out of your system,
Right.
and move on. And of course, everyone in the neighborhood showed up and it was beautiful. They did a great job. And of course, the first thing they asked when they came in the door was, where's the basement? Everyone had to go down to the basement and see where poor Jamie Carroll had been buried. But the thing is, it's they rented out to students at U of L, and the first number of years it was grad students, female grad students, and so it was kind of like a sorority house. Each had her room upstairs on the second or third floor, and then they shared the downstairs public areas, the kitchen, the library, the den, the study. And being that we go by practically every night with tours, they got to expect us. And most of them were great. They said they loved the place. It was dead, but in a good way. Nothing creepy ever happened. But they kind of got used to us. So sometimes when we'd be coming, or my other tour guides would come with a group, they'd see them coming and they go flick the porch lights on and off, or they'd go in a room facing the street and they'd flick the lights on and off, or put a sheet over their head and go in front of the window. So they were adding some visual effects. But a couple years ago, and I haven't verified this, but what I heard is, because every year it was like a new batch of students that would come and go. And a couple of years ago, I think it was in January, they said the batch of students, they just up and left in the middle of the night. They broke the lease and they wouldn't come back. And they wouldn't tell anyone what had happened. And for the next several months, the house was on the for rent on Zillow. They wanted $3,500 for it. And World of Wonder has this in an outtake, but guess who tried to rent the place for when it was on the market?
Who?
Me. When they found out who it was, they wouldn't rent it to me.
Really? That's
And so
discrimination.
now just regular students. Every couple of years, it's another batch of students that come and go. But the ones we've talked to, they say it's just a great old house and nothing creepy is going on there. But it does have a history. So there's all the thing that happened with Jamie Carroll, but the guy who ran it as a sanatorium, his name was Dr. Stanley Bandine. He partnered up with this kind of groundbreaking doctor by the name of Evelyn Bush. She was a pioneer in the field of osteopathy and neuropathy at the time. And he was in several different locations. He ended up going bankrupt in the 4th Street place and then with some other place. And so it's kind of hard to pinpoint where it happened, but he didn't have the best bedside manner. He liked to tell his patients they were dying. And when he was in the place on 4th Street, he was kind of a quack. He was promising to cure people of cancer. They were paying out the nose to go to his place and be cured. And he was giving this placebo. It was called a Coke shot. And they were dying under his care, and he loved to tell them that they were going to die. There was no hope for them. And there was complaints brought up against him. This isn't just rumor. There's actual court documents about people who had consultations with him and the things he said to them or their loved ones as they were dying. And so that's just a whole different vibe. But the owner, who was in the house for years before Jeffrey Munt bought it, in the house by one of her tenants and savagely beaten, and later died because of her injuries. So there's more than one death associated with the house. There's this whole sanatorium history. In the 1920s, people in old Louisville were saying it was a haunted house because the original owners, like the wife had died under mysterious circumstances, and then the husband kind of languished in the house as a recluse and kind of distraught. So there's no shortage of creepy stories about the house. And then they had an S&M club in the basement, so that that makes it all the more fun. And the Joey and Jeffrey, the guys accused of the killing, they were counterfeiting money on the second floor. One of them supposedly was an assassin for the CIA. There's that whole crazy angle and stuff. So there's so many angles to this story. I mean,
I was
just
trying to recall the part because I listened to part of the book before he jumped in the audiobook about the nun stuff, the weird. Can you touch on that a little bit? Because I did.
So this is kind of where the book goes away from being straight true crime. You know, when it's true crime, you have court documents, you have recorded interviews, you have transcripts and news reports that you can, take quotes and things from. And then, as is always the case, there's neighborhood gossip and there's rumors. And a lot of times, and especially if you're a journalist, you kind of discount those things if there's no substantiation. But at least half of the time, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
a lot of times with these rumors, there's something going on. And whatever is going on with Pauline Bourne, I don't know, but she lived in Bardstown and moved to Louisville. She had a bed and breakfast divorce. She was Catholic and they didn't approve of divorces. So she stayed married to her husband, but they were separated. And so she bought the big house and she owned a number of properties. And I met people who remember when she'd go up and down 4th Street collecting the rents on the first of every month from all the different places she owned and the rooms she rented out. But she seemed to have a connection to nuns somehow. And not to say that it was hers, but I know after she died and the house was largely uninhabited, people found boxes of lesbian nun porn in the backyard. I saw a box myself. So someone around 1435 South 4th Street liked lesbian nun porn that I didn't know was a thing.
Right. Yeah.
It's a thing though. And when some of these stories surfaced, that's when I realized on different occasions I had seen nuns on the front porch of that house. Like one night, because we used to live right around the corner on 3rd Street, and every night we'd take the schnauzers out and walk them. And one night we were walking with my friend Skippy, and they were just like 10 nuns in full habit, just standing on the front porch looking out onto 4th Street, like they were posing for a picture or something. And what the connection is, I don't know, but there is a connection of some form. And I love nuns, nuns,
Yeah,
and
that's not a knock on
monasteries,
nuns.
church bells. They make things so much more interesting. And that's going to be the great thing about this Bardstown book. Bardstown is fascinating just for its history because it's kind of an old Catholic bastion. After the Catholics colonized Baltimore and, Maryland, where's the first place they sent their missionaries? Kentucky, Bardstown, Nelson County, because it was a place rife with wickedness. And so there's all this great Catholic history there, and then all the distilleries, it's like spirits,
Yes.
So the Bardstown book's going to be great just for that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what the real connection is, but there are nuns involved.
Yeah.
Well, and that's something else we were talking about before we went live. For anybody, I mean, I think, well, we got quite a few over here in the chat that aren't from here. If this is a book, I mean, if you like not necessarily just true crime, but just want to read about old Louisville, there's a lot of history woven throughout this book because every time you touch on a place or some part of the little niche of the history for an area, you go down that rabbit hole of explaining it. And I love it because I'm not from here. So it's a lot.
Yeah, most people like that. And we were talking about this before. A lot of times writers are taught to, write the book that they would like to read. And that's what I did. And I don't shy away from this in the book. My inspiration was John Berendt and his book about Savannah, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, which is basically a true crime story. And I remember when I just bought a house in old Louisville. And I remember I finished John Berendt's book and I kind of stopped and I looked around. I was like, we got drag queens in old Louisville, and we got big old beautiful houses, and we got weirdos and eccentrics and stuff. And so when I started writing, I just realized I was always trying to strive to capture the eccentricities and the quirkiness that John Berendt did such a great job of portraying in his book. And so like I said before, if you're a straight true crime junkie, if you want a procedural, that's not this book.
Right.
The murder case, the trial, the killers, the accused killers, the victim, they're all there, but this is more. And I tell people it's a true crime memoir because what are
Mhm.
the chances of you almost buying a house and then 2 years
Right.
later it pops up on the news because there was a dead body buried in the basement? So
Right.
it's basically my story. It's how I almost bought this house. I found out about a murder that took place there, and then living in the neighborhood, knowing the people involved, I kind of documented how it affected people as they tried to get to the bottom of who did the crime and what happened because of the crime. So I love those little tangents. Louisville is just such a great place, and the title itself, a dark room in Glitterball City. I like to tout all this unknown history, and a lot of people don't know this. Back in the 70s and 80s, at the height of the world's disco craze, where were all the disco balls coming from? Louisville. You
Yeah.
know, and the company's still around today. They changed their name recently, but they're called Omega Mirror Products now. They're over where Cave Hill Cemetery is. That's a kind of a character in my book as well. But back then, they had a crew of 25 women who would crank out disco balls by hand. They usually made around 20 a day. There's one of them left. Her name's Yolanda Baker. She's one of our local legends. She's the reigning queen of disco balls, they call her. And she tells people she doesn't make as many as she used to, um, because some people say disco died, but I say disco never died. It's still around. But what really happened is in the 90s, China overtook Louisville with mass production. So Louisville doesn't make the most anymore. But Louisville still makes what are considered the iconic and the best quality disco balls, mirror balls, they
Kind
also
of the
call them,
home of
glitter
the glitter
balls.
balls.
And all the ones in this country that people would recognize from famous TV shows and movies are all Louisville disco balls. John Travolta dancing on Saturday Night Fever. Those are Louisville disco balls. That's what they had at Studio 54 in New York City. I
Mhm.
suspect you're old enough like me to remember a show called Soul Train with
Yeah.
Don Cornelius. They said that was the world's biggest one back then. That was from Louisville. And
Yeah.
it's not surprising a Louisville company would have this tradition with glitter balls or disco balls because it was a Kentuckian, in fact, in 1917, who first patented something called the myriad reflector. So they've been making them for over 100 years in Kentucky. Who knew? I think that's
Mhm.
just a perfect,
Right.
claim
Yeah.
to fame. And some people are
Yeah.
saying Glitter Ball City, I never heard of that. I was like, well, now you heard of it.
Yeah.
Some people are saying
David just
Louisville's not
coined that, okay?
some people saying Louisville's not Glitter Ball City, it's Derby City. Well, you can have more than one
Yeah, it's
nickname.
been Falls City. It's been a
River
little bit of
City,
everything.
Horse City,
Yes.
Bourbon City, Happy Birthday City. This is where the Happy
Yes.
Birthday song was written in
Right. Baseball bat
1893.
city.
Yeah, there's more than one nickname. So yeah, get used to it. I tell the detractors, too bad. We're Glitter Ball City. Get used to it.
Exactly. Just add it to the list of ways
Yeah.
to pronounce Louisville. There you go.
Yeah. You were gonna squeaky
This
chair.
chair is driving me nuts.
It's driving me nuts too because you keep squeaking back and forth.
Well, I'm sorry.
It happens.
You did not know that. AJ says he didn't know that the disco balls came from here. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's the book though. I mean, when you were talking, or when the book talks about, I guess it's you talking.
Well, it's not technically him talking. It's somebody that sounds like him talking, but it's in
That's
his
the
Oh,
words.
the narrator, yeah, someone who sounds like me. Yeah.
But I mean, you bring up Cave Hill Cemetery, and then just walking through Cave Hill Cemetery and passing various monuments, and then you talk about these people that are associated with the monuments, the beautiful monuments. For any of you who've never been to Cave Hill Cemetery, it's a must see.
And plan on being
monuments are
there for
beautiful.
hours
Yeah.
and hours because you can be there for days.
Yeah. But the stories behind the people associated with these beautiful monuments, I mean, you talk about several of them in the book, and it's just more Louisville history that
Mhm.
people have no clue about until you listen to the book.
Yeah,
or
and the
read it.
thing is, like I said, a lot of Louisvillians don't even know this. A lot of Louisvillians didn't know about Omega National Products and the disco balls and the fact that the Happy Birthday song was written there. So I love the fact that locals are reading the story, saying things I never knew this, and
Yeah.
One of the best compliments I have when people read my books is, and they kind of say it kind of begrudgingly, but they're like, "You made me love Louisville." You know, and if that's the case, I succeeded because,
Yeah.
as some of the reviewers said, a lot of my books are a love letter to Louisville. You know,
Mhm.
it really is the case.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you came here from up north. We won't talk
Yeah.
about Wisconsin. We won't talk about it. You came here from there. You met Ramon. You've settled here. You got a great job, a great education, and you've built yourself
An empire.
an empire. I mean,
Well, I don't know about Empire, but
well,
maybe
it
I got a couple blocks of Empire, maybe an old. But yeah, a lot of people don't know that. Yeah, I'm from Wisconsin. I moved here in 1993 to go to law school at U of L. And actually, the previous 5 years I was in Europe. I was studying to be an interpreter and a translator, and I was kind of jaded. I thought I'd seen it all, and I didn't, truthfully, I did not want to come to Louisville, Kentucky. I did not think I was going to like it. So my plan was to do my couple years at law school and get out of town, but that never happened. Here I am, half my life later. I ended up loving Louisville. Kentucky was great, and it's got a very distinct vibe. And old Louisville, where I was living, when I was going to law school at U of L, I was amazed by all those old houses. I thought, how come I never heard about this?
Yeah.
And within a year or two, I knew I loved it. And so I ended up staying and I bought the house that was supposedly haunted. And, I went to law school, but I never became a lawyer. I got into teaching and writing and stuff. I learned just enough to get me into trouble as far as lawyering goes. But I'm still friends with a lot of my law school chums. And it sounds like I might be having more fun than they are. I'm not working 80 hours a week, that's for
Right.
sure. And I get to get out on the street and give tours to cool people from all over the world and stuff and meet locals. I love it. Yeah, I love going down to Old Louisville and showing off the neighborhood.
It's an amazing place. Like we were telling you earlier, we take people down there all the time, and we don't know nearly the history that you or your guides have for their tours, but we give them what we know of, the sites that we take them to. And I mean, I wish I knew more. To be
Well, and the
honest.
thing is, the neighborhood kind of sells itself. How many places in the United States have 40, 45 square blocks of beautiful old Victorian houses and great 1800s mansions and stuff? It's just to show them the neighborhood. That's enough.
Yeah.
And then if you realize it's a beautiful backdrop for telling stories, that's kind of the icing on the cake.
Oh yeah.
We love to go down there. Whenever it's like warm out and pretty, and walk just down through the gardens, just walking past
Floral,
those, Floral Terrace and all
Belgravia
of those
and
places.
all those. But yeah.
Yeah, Floral Terrace, the Witch's Tree, right on the corner there. You got to go to the Witch's Tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
a must-have, must-see.
Must see for anybody that's into the weird and creepy.
Yep, that's me.
Well, you definitely, if you've never come to West Point, you need to come here. We are history, like our house right here. We were a Civil War hospital. We've been
a lot of great places. And then one of my food books I wrote about Star Cafe.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I actually saw Cindy Rutledge last weekend at a book signing. She was the previous owner. When I had that, and it was my book called 111 Fabulous Food Finds. So I used to love going there and stuff. Great little town.
Yeah, it's cool. We're trying to make a comeback. The 97 flood destroyed most of the businesses in town, and that's been 30 years, but it's still a uphill climb to get business back in town, but it's a really cool little town.
Yeah, we love it.
So what's next? I mean, I know you said you're going to be writing the Bardstown book. Beyond that, do you know where you're going with things?
Like I said, I got my drag queen poo-poo chiffon mystery. I've got my Bardstown. The publisher wants to call it The Curse of Bardstown. I kind of like that title. So those are the next two things. I've got two other fiction things out there. If any publishers are looking for something to publish, get in touch. I got two books ready to go. My agent, I think,
I wonder who's Brian's publisher. We actually have a guy doing a book release here in May that wrote a story here in our house that
Oh,
does
really?
fiction. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm kind of treading water now, with the HBO thing out, and I just did a
So,
big regional tour. I did 12 signings at 12 different places in a week. So that just finished, and I'm going to see if we're going to do a national tour or do any other ones. But I'm just kind of enjoying it, people reaching out on Facebook and love reading the reviews come in and stuff. So I'm just going to enjoy the spring weather, and I like to travel a lot, but I don't have any trips planned for another month or two or three. So I'm going to enjoy Louisville in the springtime and looking forward to the Kentucky Derby, and plunking along on my different writing projects and giving tours.
yeah,
So not too much, in the works other than, what I normally do.
right.
Do you still have some book signings lined up? Because we really want to come to one of those, but we've been busy.
I will publicize them, but I do have several more
Okay.
rounds coming up. So nothing that's been publicized yet, but there are more in the works.
Good.
Cool.
You may see us at one of those too.
Yeah.
And of course, in the fall, with Thanksgiving, Halloween leading up to Thanksgiving, it'll be crazy. So I'll be at the St. James Court Art Show those 3
Mhm.
days, signing books. Our Victorian Ghost Walk, you need to come for that, actually. That
Yes.
gets some good coverage in the documentary. So, throughout the year, we do tours year round. And usually what it is, um, yeah, I definitely agree with that West Point, and the Civil War history there is great. But yeah, so most of our tours are, you meet a guide, and the guide takes you around the neighborhood. You stop in front of the reportedly haunted houses, and they tell stories. But once a year only, it's always the third weekend in October.
I need to write
Instead
that
of the
down.
guides telling the stories, we have a special theatrical tour. It's going to be the 16th, the 17th, and 18th this year, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Tours depart the Conrad Caldwell House, one of our more famous haunted houses in the neighborhood. And every 15 minutes, a different group, usually 35 people, goes off with a guide. Instead of the guide telling the stories at every stop, actors appear in Victorian attire. They come alive as the ghosts. And some of them are in the houses where they were poisoned in 1888, or on the back porch where Aunt Sally killed her lover in 1902. And for the most part, these are real characters that have been documented in the neighborhood. So you go inside some of the houses, the parlors and the porches become the sets. And there's only 13 groups each night, so it's very limited. But this is going to be our 18th year of doing it. It's a fundraiser for the South 4th Street Association. And the New York Times, when they gave the review of the documentary, they talked a lot about the Victorian Ghost Walk, and a lot of other places mentioned this. They talk about how the fact that people embrace this haunted history, the fact that it's America's most haunted neighborhood. They love how amateur actors come alive to bring the history of the neighborhood to life. And so, of course, normally we don't sell tickets until August, but tickets are online already because they want to come to the
Yeah.
Victorian Ghost Walk because
I'll
it's
be getting online soon.
HBO. So if you want, go to redpintix.com, redpintix.com, and look for Victorian Ghost Walk. And for those nights, the tickets are on sale already. And going to be the 18th year already. It's kind of amazing. We've been doing it this long, but it's a great way to showcase the neighborhood. People love it, and it makes money for one of our important neighborhood associations. So it's a great
Yeah.
event.
That sounds like fun. I'd actually like to put on my top hat and go down there and act in that.
Do that. If you want to be a goblin, I have all these little goblins stationed around the neighborhood to scare people as the groups come by and stuff. That's
Hey,
one of the
we can be
funnest parts.
goblins. We're good at
Yeah.
goblins.
I'm always looking for goblins. If you want to be a goblin, let me know.
She does a mean turkey impression.
AJ, shush, we're done with you. AJ, that's over here in the chat, when he brought up Fort Duffield, he's actually going to be our guest March 21st. We do like 4 times a year at Fort Duffield. We do spirit squatches and stories around the campfire, and he's going to be our guest March 21st, because I don't know if you know it, but West Point up there at the fort, we've got Bigfoot here as well as our Civil War ghosts.
Well, I know about up on the hill. I know about the fort and all that history, but I've just recently found out about the Sasquatch history. So that's good.
Yeah, it's I mean it's widely reported. If you go to the places that document those reports, there's a lot of those reports from that area. But
we didn't know till we took over doing the paranormal up there, and we went up there a few times just to get some ghost stories of ourselves, because you know how this is. You want to have a little bit of background. If you're going to tell stories, you don't want to just tell other people's stories.
Yeah.
And we had a few Sasquatch encounters, and we were like, well,
we got that.
we got something to add to this.
Yes.
But we'd like to invite you to that sometime too.
Sure. Yeah, years ago I did a Fort Duffield storytelling night. That was probably 20 years or so ago. But
Really?
I love the fact that they're embracing that Civil War connection and all the great history up there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we might have to try to hook up with you sometime to get you as a guest up there to tell some stories around the campfire. Because those events, that's largely what they are. We have a cookout, build a fire. If you're familiar with Fort Duffield, the readout area down there, the little round fire pit area, everybody just kind of gathers around there and we tell ghost stories, and
they can go explore if they want to.
They don't have to be ghost stories, just we have campfire tales basically. And it's just a good laid back atmosphere.
And we take all those proceeds. I mean, we do deduct obviously for the food cost, but we take all the proceeds, go straight back to the fort to help
do
with
some restoration.
Yeah, preservation.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people are coming to discover, storytelling, paranormal history, ghost tours, Paracon events. You can do more than just promote paranormal things. It really can tie into the fabric of a community. So when things happen like that, where they're mutually beneficial, I think it's great. And like I said, you don't need to believe to enjoy. There's still a lot that's worthwhile.
Right. Yeah. Like you said earlier, I mean, you don't have to believe in ghosts to enjoy a good ghost story. And I mean, there's plenty of them out there.
And I think sometimes it's just people, lots of people come hoping to have an experience, obviously. But whether they do or whether they don't, I think it's finding like-minded people, because when this is like your thing and this is what you want to talk about and what you want to do, I can't call up my aunt and talk about ghosts. You know what I mean? It's like you want to find that your person for that.
Yeah.
It helps build connections.
Yeah. I always go to all these things hoping I'll see something. It's like, and they say, don't do this or you'll disturb. I'm always poking a stick. I'm trying to get them riled up. And I still haven't seen anything after all these years. I still haven't seen anything that I haven't been able to explain away. But I'm open.
Come on down to the house anytime. Let us know you're coming. This place is crazy.
I'll do it. You better watch out. I'll be there in the middle of the night knocking on your door.
Hey, come on.
Come on. We're usually up most of the night anyway. So come on down. I was going to say something.
David Keach just said, come on. David is one of our faithful. He has been at every one of our events, and he was one of the first groups to have a Sasquatch experience up there.
Really? Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So what?
He just said now watching the door opens by itself sometimes. We just had that done. We told him, David, while we were setting up.
When we were getting set up, it happened.
We actually had a podcast one night that door opened on. So everybody
really?
That door now.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm just I'm kind of caught up on this Victorian ghost walk thing now. I want to be a Victorian ghost.
Oh, seriously, we have people that they just dress up and just walk up and down St. James Court,
Yeah.
And just be creepy and add some atmosphere. Yeah, if you want to, definitely. And then I have people, in capes or goblin capes, just hiding behind trees to scare people and stuff. That's one of the best parts of the Victorian Ghost Walk.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. We'll definitely be there in one way or another. We're coming.
We are.
We're
There's
We've seen the advertisements every year. I tell him I want to do this, and then up till this year, we decided we're cutting back on some stuff because our last 3 years of our lives have been so full.
Paracons and events and
people
things
here
like
at
that
the
every
house,
weekend.
things up at the fort. It's just constant. So I was like, we've got to take some time for ourselves this year and do something we want to enjoy, because it gets to become work after a while.
Yeah. But I've remembered what I was going to say now. Most of us that are into the paranormal, we didn't start out being into the paranormal necessarily. Most of us started out as history buffs. And then when you start researching history of places, inevitably you run across ghost stories of old locations. And so that piques your interest in the paranormal side. And that's where most paranormal investigators or paranormal enthusiasts are born. And a lot of people that see us, they see you with your black t-shirts and your, all that stuff. They don't think of us in that way. They think of us as, some kind of demon hunter or something they've seen on TV or whatever. But I mean, really, history and hauntings are, you can't have one without the other, if you ask me. And so that's why your style of writing and your tours and everything intrigue me so much.
Yeah, and storytelling is a big part of it. People like to be entertained, and people love to be scared. And with ghost stories, you kind of kill two birds with one stone. And like I said, there's so much more involved. And I always, like you said, I was always fascinated by history and old houses when I was a kid. But I kind of, I gotta blame my grandpa on all this. Why I loved creepy stuff from a very early age. So I grew up in central Wisconsin. I grew up in Wood County, in a little town called Wisconsin Rapids. Well, right down the road is a town called Plainfield. And some people know Plainfield because in the late 1950s, there was a serial killer that made all the national news. He was called the Butcher of Plainfield. Most people know him as Ed Gein. Many consider him the father, grandfather of serial killers. And my grandfather was a deputy sheriff. And when Ed Gein was arrested, my grandfather was called across the county lines to go to the farmhouse and look for some of the victims. And, Ed Gein, he had killed several middle-aged women. He had a mama complex, basically. And he was digging up dead bodies of middle-aged women, and he was making a woman to wear. And that's what inspired Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, also Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Silence of the Lambs. So I grew up hearing those stories from my grandfather. Like when I was 6 years old, he was telling me about finding lampshades covered in human skin and bowls made from human skulls in Ed Gein's kitchen and stuff. And he always was living in places where crazy things were happening. So I grew up hearing those kind of stories. It's not surprising I'd be fascinated by the paranormal and creepy things.
Yeah, that's kind of how I started. My parents, my whole family actually were urban legend hunters and loved ghost stories. And anything weird, and they would be telling these stories that I probably shouldn't have been part of as young as I was, but it fascinated me. Like to the point that there were a few times I was like, is there something wrong with me? Because this is so macabre and I probably should be, distraught thinking about this, but it fascinates me. I want to know more.
You were just a little Wednesday Addams in the making.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now she's a big Wednesday Addams.
I'll tell you this story, even with all of that, this is something I don't think I've ever told on a podcast, even with all that weirdness and my parents knowing that they created this monster. I think my mom had a moment of concern because there was a cat that got decapitated on the train tracks. And me and my friend were walking to the store and found this cat, and I would go poke the head with a stick like every day to kind of get a better look at it. I was obsessed. I was in like the 5th grade. I was obsessed with this dead cat. I know that it's weird. I know I probably need therapy, but this was
Was it a black cat at least?
it was not a black cat. But I had this obsession with this dead cat.
Mhm.
I don't know.
You scare me.
I should scare you. Just remember
You are a
that. Just
scary-
remember it.
Yeah. So that David, here's my wife.
I probably
Help
need
me.
therapy. So
Yeah.
if Ernie goes missing, I didn't do it.
Okay, I heard that.
Hey,
before.
see, write that down.
Well,
I
I think I don't have to write it down. It's recorded, isn't it?
Yeah, we got it right here. Yeah.
We got a whole audience. We got a whole audience for
That's
that.
one thing I did want to ask you. When you were when the trial first started after the case, and you were going to the courtroom and talking to people about the trial, did you automatically know that, hey, I'm writing a book about this? I mean, did you instantly know that, or were you just going as an interested person?
Right away, I thought about writing a book, but it took 2 or 3 years before I finally realized I would write the book. And one of the reasons is, I didn't know if I had it in me to write this kind of book because, if you're going to write this kind of book, you got to be a journalist, But I'm not that kind of journalist that can be a gadfly and track people down and knock on their door and ask them,
Right.
their
Right.
involvement. And so early on, I especially the victims' families and then the accused families, I didn't reach out to them directly, but I let it be known through different channels what I was doing. I was writing this book, and I let them know that if they wanted to talk, I would love to talk to them, but that was it. I did not bother them. I did not want to rub salt in an open wound. Jeffrey and Joey, the accused killers, I reached out through attorneys and sent them registered letters. I tried, because, and that's one of the reasons the book took so long. I figured I had to talk to those two. If I was going to write the book, you've got to get their side of the story if you want to be objective. And 6, 7 years in to my, endeavor, they still hadn't talked to me. And that's when I realized, I can't just keep spinning my wheels. I got to write the book. And if they don't talk to me, I'll just build that into the story.
Mhm.
And that's when I went back and kind of reconfigured things. Up until that point, I was thinking more of along the lines of a straight true crime or procedural. But then, 7 years in, I went back and I made myself more of a character. That's when I shaped it as more of a memoir. And the thing is, for a memoir, you need time to look back and reflect on things. In a memoir, it's not an autobiography. You're looking back at a period of your life, and you've got to have
Right.
some introspection. And that's when I went back and made myself more of a character. And that was a great way to do it, I think, because making myself a character. And Hunter S. Thompson, godfather of gonzo journalism, was from Louisville, and he was a journalist, but he wasn't an objective journalist. He filtered it all through his crazy drug-addled lens and stuff. And I didn't realize I was doing this until some reviewers pointed out, but I realized doing it that way, I was able to go explore these gray areas that weren't documented. And that's where you have a lot of the fun,
Exactly.
talking about the gossip and the rumors and things like that. So I still tried to present the facts as they are, but then I go off into these other tangents and things. And so long story short, no, wasn't convinced I was going to write the book. I kind of wanted to, but it took me a couple years before I realized I was going to write the book.
I gotcha.
Anybody over here that hasn't checked it out, you need to, because I'm telling you, it's really, really good. And don't think if you don't know anything about Louisville that it's going to matter, because David will explain it to you.
Yeah, it's
Hey there, Laura.
it's definitely worth it, and I like how it plays. I think it plays very well with it being kind of a first person perspective of these goings on that were, for those of us who lived in Louisville, lived through that time period. It was all over the news every day. It was in the newspaper every day. And there were different bits and pieces of the story that came out. It's like, oh, was he dismembered? No, the bones were broken. And just all of these things. It's like, and it just plays out so well in the book and how it's delivered. I think it's must read stuff for anybody that's into that kind of thing.
Yeah, like you're exactly right. I mean, everyone knew about it, but most people only knew what the press was reporting. And then the trials happened, and then people only knew what was coming out in the trials, but there was so much more. I mean, all
Mhm.
this other information never came out in the trials and stuff. So it's just, there's just so many layers of a story like this. And I hope I captured it well in the book.
I really think you did.
I think you did. I mean, I'm not even nearly halfway through, but I'm looking forward to finishing it.
Yeah, and
I'm
then
aware.
watch the documentary and see how different they are.
Chris is
Oh,
one of
really?
our friends that comes to our
Oh,
Fort
really?
Dusty events.
He's
Oh, okay. Yeah.
well.
Oh,
How'd you like that house, Chris? You'd rather come to our house, wouldn't you? We haven't had any bodies in the basement that we know of.
That we know of. We haven't went
not,
under
not,
there either.
Right.
yeah, not yet. Not
We got
yet.
bodies in the backyard.
Well, there's that. Well, we have been on for an hour. Is there anything you want
Wow.
to? Yeah, it kind of flew by.
Yeah,
It
it
did.
did. It went fast.
Anything you want to drop out there for anybody to, links to get hold of you or buy your
Well,
book?
like I said, we love showing off the old Louisville neighborhood, kind of the star of the book and of the HBO original Murder in Glitterball City. And a lot of people think we only do ghost tours and we do them only at Halloween, but no, we do tours year round, every day of the week. We do history and architecture tours during the day, ghost tours at night. We do food tours. So we try to show off Louisville's most interesting neighborhoods, but our favorite is Old Louisville, of course. And so I like to lead tours myself, but I can't do them all myself anymore. So I've got 7 or 8 great guides that help me out. Some of them are in the documentary. Angelique Stacy, she's a favorite, and she's a trained voodoo priestess and sensitive.
I think I've got
Deborah Harlan, who describes herself as the neighborhood pain in the ass in the documentary. She was around back in the day, the 70s and 80s, when a lot of things were changing in the neighborhood. So she has a lot of, real life firsthand experience. But the good thing is about our tours of Old Louisville, most of the people live there. They have a personal connection. And they love the neighborhood. They just want people to know about the neighborhood. So if you're local, come and find out about something in your own backyard. If you're not from town, now's your time to book your trip to Louisville and check out Old Louisville, America's grandest Victorian neighborhood, America's most haunted neighborhood. You can find out more about the tours at www.louisvillehistorictours.com. You find them on TripAdvisor, ticket sites as well. And then you can find out more about me and my upcoming signings at my website, www.daviddomine.com, DAVIDDOMINE.com. Yeah, I'm looking forward to just basking in the accolades the filmmakers are getting from this wonderful documentary. And congratulations to Fenton and Randy. They did a really great job. Like I said, they were really true to the spirit of the book. It's, the documentary isn't the same thing as the book, but they really captured the essence. They loved Louisville. They had never been to Louisville before, and they loved the people of Louisville. They think they're quirky and smart and eccentric and charming. And some of the people who are watching the documentary are like, why is Little John getting so much screen time? Little John of
Little John
John's
had the
Pawn
greatest
Shop.
commercial. Come on.
They were so cheesy that they were great, and they're in the book because I was watching TV and there was a Little John's commercial, and the news flash cut into that. So a lot of the people they're like, what the hell is Little John doing? What does he have to do with the murder? I was like, well, if you read the book, he's in the book. And the other thing is, this story is not just about the murder. It's about Louisville. It's about the vibe and the people, and
Right.
he's integral to it. And I'm not gonna give any spoilers, but you might be seeing a little more of Little John and his wife Missy on TV in the future. That's all I'm going to say.
I wouldn't doubt that a bit. I
Mhm.
see him going down the road with his convertible Corvette all the time with gold shades and.
I mean, they're great
cool.
characters, so we need to see more of them. We definitely need to see more of them.
Yeah, he's cool.
Mhm.
Well, David, it's been a pleasure and an honor to have you on. And like I say, we'd love to do it again, and we'd love
Yeah.
to have you come up at the fort and tell some stories sometime.
in.
if
Yeah,
ever-
I look forward to that. Thanks for having me on, and hopefully the next time I see you is in old Louisville, and I'll give you a tour myself. Just let me know when.
All right.
Absolutely.
We'll be getting done here in just a few minutes. We'll see you down there.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thanks,
Well, everybody
everyone,
over
for
in the
tuning
chat,
Yeah, thanks everyone.
we appreciate y'all. Y'all be good to one another. And we'll be back next week. We're going to have a guest. It's probably not going to be somebody cool like David.
Oh, probably better.
Never know. Anyway, y'all be good to one another. We love y'all. Everybody take care, and we'll see you next week.